Welcome back everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to disassemble and assemble the Winchester 1300. Start by removing the magazine cap, sometimes referred to as the barrel nut. Once that is off, you can grab the barrel firmly, twist it back and forth while pulling it apart from the receiver, and it'll pop off. Next, you're going to remove the trigger guard group, and in order to do that, first you must remove the trigger guard group retaining pin, which is this little pin right here. It is directional. You can't push it out both ways. It can only go out the other side of the receiver here. Get you something small like a metal rod. What I like to do is set it on there and then tap it a few times. If you're using a newer gun that's not broken in, it may be kind of hard to get this pin out at first, but once you've taken it apart 3 or 4 times, cleaned it up and lubricated it, that pin's going to come out really easy. Once you pull that pin out, your trigger guard group will just pull straight out of the bottom like you're about to see right here. And that is your trigger guard group removed. Next, you're going to grab the forearm of the shotgun, pull it away from the receiver. The slide arms are going to come out, and your bolt housing group is going to be right on top of it. That's just going to fall right out. It just sets on there. Okay, at this point, you can take apart the bolt housing group here. First, compress the firing pin and the bolt together, and that's going to allow you to pull off the slide arm bridge. So compress those together, and it's going to loosen that up. You may have to wiggle it just a little bit, but you'll find a groove in there, and that slide arm bridge will pop right out. Once that is out, make sure you keep pressure on that firing pin, because if you take your finger off of it, that thing's going to fly out, and you're potentially going to lose that in your firing pin spring. So pull out your firing pin, and then your spring will pull apart from that very easily. It just slides right off. Now this is as far as I go with my breakdown of the Winchester 1300, because that's as far as the manual tells you to go. Once you've done your maintenance or cleaned it up, it's time to put it back together. First, put the firing pin spring back on the firing pin. Now that firing pin will slide back into the bolt here. You'll find a little groove down in there. It should slide in pretty easily. You're going to compress it together in order to get your slide arm bridge back on. Now this little U right here will slide right down into this hole, so you just have to compress it to the right spot in order for this to slide in. And once you do, release the firing pin, and the pressure will push it into position. From there, as long as your bolt and your firing pin can compress, you're fine. Now you can take your bolt and set it onto the slide arm. You can see the grooves right there that it slides right on. The best way to get your bolt back in and your forearm back onto the weapon is to hold it directly up and down. If you try to do it leaning it over to the side, it's going to fall off. So right here, if you hold it directly up and down, you'll see a little groove in there. Just push it right in. It should require just a little bit of resistance. You might have to wiggle it around a little bit like all things on the Winchester 1300, but eventually it'll pop right in there. You won't have a problem. Now to get your trigger guard group back in, you'll see these 2 little notches right here at the front of the receiver. You're going to take the notches right there, as you can see on the front of that guard group, and set them underneath that. And once they're in there, you're going to be able to push down on the other end of the trigger guard group, and that's going to create the leverage to push it back in. Now that it's in, you can take your trigger guard group retaining pin, put that back in. Once again, it is directional. It can only go in from this side of the weapon. So set it on there once everything is lined up and you can see daylight through the other side. If you can't push it through with your thumb, you can wiggle it around. If you need to use your rod again, you could also do that. Now you're ready to put your barrel back on. First, compress the bolt just a little bit. That's going to allow the barrel to sit on there properly and be fully seated before you put the magazine cap back on. Once your barrel is fully seated, you can put your magazine cap back on. That only needs to be hand tight. Now, as always, once you've taken apart a weapon and put it back together, we're going to move on to the functions check. First, put the weapon on fire, pump it 1 time, pull the trigger, trigger should fall. Keeping the trigger compressed, pump it again, release the trigger, pull the trigger should fall. You can pump it one more time to get it back on safe, and that's your functions check. As always, thank you for watching. If you liked the video or you learned something here today, like and subscribe to our channels, and we'll see y'all next time.